Henry, very good evening to you. Welcome back to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham. I've got that feeling of deja vu all over again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. I mean, it seems to be taking up half of my life, this thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've had a quick glance at some of these amendments, some of which are quite frankly ludicrous. One of them actually says that the new Rwanda law must be enacted in law and must not break the law. Now, call me old-fashioned, but if you're actually bringing a new law into the Houses of Parliament, you don't need to say it must be the law because it's already become the law, hasn't it?
Yeah, indeed. And this has been an argument put up by those people who are against this Rwanda plan right from the beginning, that, it's got to comply with the law. Well, that's what an Act of Parliament is. It's the law.
Exactly.
And it really is nonsensical to me. And there is the bill actually says, not that it should need saying, certainly not in an Act of Parliament, that Parliament is sovereign. Well, why that needs to be stated to Parliament, I don't know. But
it might as well say Parliament's got a big tower with a bell at the top that rings every hour, and it's called Big Ben. Actually,
yeah,
it's not really,
it's largely populated by Muppets. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But the thing is that if Parliament decides that Parliament wants to breach some agreement that it's got internationally, not that this necessarily will, but if they decide that they want to do that, then then they are within the law because Parliament is sovereign. So this whole idea that this is unlawful is just a red herring. It's just something to put people off supporting it, I think.
Yes.
It's nonsensical.
Yeah, I think so.
I think most constitutional lawyers would tell you the same thing.
Yeah, and I think it's more or less just a sort of a blocking mechanism, isn't it? But stay where you are, Henry. I'm joined now from the Central Lobby in Westminster by Conservative MP Mark Garnier, who is an MP for Wyre Forest. Mark, a very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us on the Independent Republic of Mike Graham. The voting, I believe, is underway. I'm sorry to make you feel like you're being a reporter here, but tell us what's happening.
Well, we've just had the first division bell. We are expecting 10 divisions on this, so 10 votes. So each one takes about 15 minutes, so we're going to be here for, about 2.5 hours voting on this. But there are, so basically these are all the Lord's amendments, and the government has put down a motion to reject every single one of them. So we're not expecting any of these Lord's amendments to go through, unless some people rebel, but there's no talk of rebellions on this. I think it's going to go through all fairly clearly, and that'll be the end of it. So we should end up with third reading this evening or whenever, it's certainly by the end of this week. Royal assent shortly after that, and then straight after that we should be able to enact this Act of Parliament, as it will be by the time we're finished.
Yes, and for the people who are most interested in the end result, when, if possible, would it be before anybody actually gets on a plane to Rwanda?
Well, if this Act works exactly as we want it to do, to the extent we want it to do, actually you'll never send anybody to Rwanda because it will have had the effect of putting people off coming over the English Channel, and these illegal migrants, or those migrants potentially gaming the system. But look, inevitably, it's not going to stop every single one of them. So, from what I understand, we should start seeing those failed migrants being deported to Rwanda within the next few weeks, so sort of 4 or 5 weeks or so.
And these would be people who have already been turned down for asylum, presumably.
I will have to double check that because there may be people who have been turned down by the new rounds. But if you remember, the whole of this bill is looking at trying to sort of speed up the process by which you can deal with all of this. What we don't want to do is have endless appeals against the findings of a court. Which is what we've seen with a lot of those applicants who appear to be gaming the system. I mean, I'm not skilled enough to do that.
Well, that is the problem, isn't it? Because every single time that anybody tries to do anything different, lawyers get involved and nobody goes anywhere.
Well, I think it's not unreasonable that if somebody comes along and claims asylum here, that they should get some sort of legal advice. But Mike, you're absolutely right. I mean, at the end of the day, if you are sort of thinking about this as a package that's being offered by the illegal criminal, people smugglers that are behind all of this, for $8,000 or $10,000, you are being presented with an opportunity to be delivered to the beaches of Dover, and after that you will then be given a 3-star hotel accommodation for as long as it takes. You'll be given all the legal advice for as long as you want. You get, I can't remember what it is, I think it's £4.50 a day in living expenses, which doesn't, even buy you half a packet of cigarettes, but nonetheless, it's taxpayers' money. It actually looks quite good value for money for $8,000 or $10,000. And obviously, it's the British taxpayer that are paying for the vast majority of this. So the whole point behind this process is to try to disrupt that people smugglers' business model, so that people will stop coming across the English Channel.
Right. So one final one for you, Mark. Not much rebellion on the Rwanda Safety Bill, but what about generally the rebellion? How's the atmosphere? I mean, it must be more. There must be more plots than Macbeth right now, isn't it?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, Mike, I'm not the type that gets drawn into these plots, so nobody's ringing me to see if I would support, whoever it happens to be, Penny or Rob or Suella or whatever. But look, there is all this talk over the weekend. We're acutely aware of this, and we have been sort of chatting amongst ourselves to try and find out where it's coming from. Look, at the end of the day, it is completely insane. The idea that we're going to change for, what is it, our 4th or 5th new Prime Minister in this Parliament alone. Look, we've got to present a united front, and I've said this before and I'll say it again. If we don't like ourselves, then why should the voters like us? So we've got to get behind Rishi, who, I strongly believe is doing an outstanding job. I think we get behind him, get on with the next general election, and go and present the strong case that Conservatives can, and point out the failings that Labour have with their manifesto.
Mark Garnier, thanks very much indeed, Conservative MP for Wyre Forester, down in the lobby at the beginning of the process of about, 10 different amendments. They're going to be there for 2.5 hours. Well, we finished before they are. Stay where you are, Henry Bolton. I'll come back to you in a second, but I want to introduce the panel now because I've got Madeline Grant, I've got Lord Dodsworth, and I've got Andrew Eborn here with me. They're quite a sensible Tory MP. I've not really seen much of that recently.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
Calm heads to prevail and,
yes.
and not wanting a leadership contest.
Right.
But I think there are actually more than you think that do adopt that attitude, frankly.
I'm sure
I think
true.
that obviously it's in the interest of journalists to big up, and you never know quite where it's coming from, because often it is anonymous briefing.
Yeah.
When no one is named, it could be sort of, sounds like it could be 12 MPs or it could just be one. I mean, we have no idea precisely the scale of the
I mean, I guess the
plotting.
difficulty for Rishi Sunak is Penny Mordaunt continues to say nothing. Yeah. I'm not interested in taking over from Rishi Sunak. I think he's a brilliant Prime Minister. Why? I don't know why people keep mentioning my name. She hasn't said that, has she?
Hasn't she?
No.
Well, Kemi Badenoch's denied all of the plotting, hasn't she?
So that one must be true.
So that one must be true. I mean, Penny Mordaunt did a great job, didn't she, last year, of carrying a sword?
Yes. She did.
In her new ceremonial role.
Yes.
But I mean, that's about all I can think of. I think that she's just too sort of, can I just say, a bit too wet. And I think that there'd be a real misunderstanding of what that quite new fragile voter base and the Red Wall really wants.
I'm told she's a very good Conservative local MP, though, for Portsmouth.
Yes.
People down there really like her.
Yep.
So, I mean, she has that in her favour. But, I mean, again, it's a bit of a poison chalice, isn't it, Andrew?
Oh, it's total poison chalice.
I mean, if
isn't it?
somebody came to me and said, would you like to be leader of Conservative? I would say no.
Really? I think you'll be very good.
I would be good, but, this is not the time, Andrew.
The reality is that Penny hasn't turned round and said no.
Right.
And that's the interesting thing. Because normally what people do, they turn around and they deny, of course, no, we must support the current leader and so on and so forth. It'll be interesting to get our 4th female Prime Minister within that time. And they're talking about working on that sort of premise, that they're gearing up for the next sort of side. But the fact that she hasn't come out begs all sorts of questions. Because normally what they do, and it always follows a pattern, they always deny everything. I'm right behind Rishi is what she should have said. She hasn't, so I'm sure that her political ambitions will come to the forefront eventually. Yeah,
I mean, the smart money's on, let's wait and see what happens in the May local elections, isn't it? And then the plotting will really start. I think it's bad now. Then it'll be really bad. Let's go back to Henry Bolton. Now, Henry, sorry to keep you waiting there. What did you make of Mark Garnier's assessment of tonight? So basically what we've had is a complete and utter waste of time. The House of Lords have come up with 10 amendments, which are all going to get voted down tonight. More public money down the wazoo. More Lords claiming their £350 a day for coming in and debating in high dudgeon all of these things, which are going to go nowhere.
Well, 2 things immediately come to mind, Mike. Number one is that Mark Garnier was saying that they hope that this will deter small boat crossings. It will not. They are trying to deter the wrong people. And, even on government figures, if they send 500 people over to Rwanda, if they succeed in all of that, and I'll come on to that in a minute, then if we've got 40,000 people crossing the channel, that's 1 in 80 people. And none of these people who are thinking of coming are going to consider that a risk not worth taking in that regard. The people we need to deter are the organised criminals who are marketing the movement, encouraging it in the first place, and then facilitating it all the way through from the point of origin. But the other thing that he was talking about there, and you've just mentioned indeed, are the 10 amendments. Well, I'm going to slightly disagree with you, Mike.
That's okay.
Yeah, the Lords, the Lords. Thank you. The Lords are, they're criticised for all sorts of reasons, good reasons and bad. But one of the things that they are supposed to do is scrutinise legislation, and that's really their primary purpose. And if they feel that something needs to be looked at again, then so be it. What we've got a problem with generally with the Lords, and it's a different topic to Rwanda, I suppose, but is, are they the right people? Are they really qualified enough and engaged enough and experienced enough to be that sort of senior devil's advocate and technical sort of scrutiny branch of Parliament that we need? I would argue that's not the case. So we need to get better quality people in there, and probably fewer. But I have no problem with this going backwards and forwards. It's meant to be a quality control, and I wouldn't like to see it otherwise. The other thing that, just quickly to mention, that we are, and I keep saying this whatever opportunity I have, we fixate on Rwanda. As I said just now, Rwanda is not going to solve the small boats problem, but it does distract the public, the media, and politicians from all of the issues relating to our borders. Our borders are insecure. They are porous. We have got all of the cocaine, all of the heroin, 97% of the firearms used in the UK in crime, all come across our borders. Our fisheries, the fishery protection stuff, that is a form of border stuff. Our maritime pollution controls, that's part of your border control as well at the maritime level. None of this is getting any attention, but all of it is failing just as much as the immigration side of it. Yeah. So, I'd like to see this opened up.
Yeah. Henry, thanks very much indeed for your time. Henry Bolton there, former UKIP leader. Madeline, let's go back to just sort of domestic politics, if you like, not so much about the borders in Rwanda. But, Rishi Sunak claimed today that basically the party was sort of more united than ever, and this is going to be our year, were his words. I mean, is he the most deluded guy in Westminster? Well,
what he said was that this will be the year of the Tory bounce back, right, he said. I'm not sure about that. I think there's the big worry for them now is, does the lack of support, does the decline in support, does it have a kind of natural low point? Is there a point at which it can go no lower? Because they keep getting to the point that which everyone would have said, this is where the Tory faithful will kick in. It won't go lower than 25% or whatever, and it keeps getting lower. And still there's the question mark, for example, should Nigel Farage decide to take over the Reform Party and massively turbocharge the publicity and the support that they currently have. That could also be a terminal event. But I think part of the reason for the PM's allegedly optimistic feeling is just based on the fact that, we will start to see inflation going lower. You could have Rwanda flights, albeit perhaps not enough to make a massive point to and say, look, the medicine is working, things are turning around, the economy is doing better. And in the end, it didn't really make any difference to how people felt.
I think the difference now is that Blair was quite an interesting kind of possibility for people, whereas Starmer isn't really, is he? I mean, he's not interesting. No, they're not saying they've got anything interesting to do.
You're right. They're voting against as opposed to something for. You're not voting for Starmer, you're voting against the Tories. I don't think it's going to be as bad for them as people make out, because the reality is it's appalling at the moment. What would you expect a leader to say? Not that I'm in a dismal position, but I'm in a really good... Everyone's behind me. Maybe they're stabbing him.
I mean, I would find it quite refreshing if you came out one day and just went, this is an absolute nightmare.
It is.
My job is the worst job. I never thought it'd be this bad. I can't believe I'm still here. But we'll have an election soon. I won't be here for much longer. That'd be great, wouldn't it?
But you're absolutely right, but as always. But what happens, everybody's going to remember his 5 promises, and most of which are easy. The inflation bit, when it was at 11%, I promise I'm going to get it half there. Yeah. Stop the boats. Piers will lose his £1,000 bet. There will be at least one, because he bet Rishi there's going to be no flights at all before the election.
Right.
And I think there'll be at least one flight. Okay. The crazy thing is, what the FT says is working out about £230,000 per person that you send to Rwanda, and which is complete madness. What you need to look at, as the point was made earlier, it's supposed to be a deterrent. If we can deter people from coming over, then that's got to make sense.
Yes.